So does anyone remember Sonic 4? Yeah, that cool pixel art game from 2017. Wait, no, that's Sonic Mania. Oh, the new game with the Generations classic Sonic design. No, that's not it either. Oh, this Sonic 4. A little fun fact, I was incredibly hyped when this game was announced as a kid. Not to play it on any console, oh no, to buy it on my goddamn iPod Touch. I have not thought about this game in years, and I didn't even bother with the sequel when it came out, so I'm going to cover both Episode 1 and Episode 2 in this video. Okay, so first off, getting Episode 1 to run on PC was an absolute ball ache, since it relies on Java to work for some ungodly reason, and like fuck was I going out of my way to download it for the sake of this game, so thankfully there's a very helpful guide on Steam to circumvent it, so big shout out to whoever made that, but it took quite a bit of time to get it working. That's not even to mention the launcher. Full screen straight up crashes the game, and finding a resolution that both looked decent and didn't cut the bottom of the screen just took ages. I don't know why. Honestly, if I wasn't making a video on these games, I would have stopped right here. So, like, comment, and subscribe so I can recover from this trauma, please. Thank you. The game plops you straight into the first level, Splash Hill Zone, a very clear rip on Green Hill, and oh boy, where do I even begin? You know how people say Sonic Heroes makes the models look like they're made of plastic? I never found it that bad personally, but here it's so plasticky that I feel like I'm a little kid choking on an action figure, that's how plastic it is. Everything is so glaringly shiny, and for quite possibly the first time covering Sonic games on my channel, I really, and I mean really, dislike the soundtrack. Splash Hill Act 1 and the special stages themes are okay, I guess, but everything else I find actively unpleasant to listen to. They've gone for this imitation of the Sega Mega Drive sound chip, but it does not work at all. The controls are extremely different to the classic numbered titles too, and not in a good way. Now, I'm not against the game feeling or controlling differently from those games. Hell, the Sonic Advance and Rush games feel nothing like the classic games, and they're fun as hell. But the controls here are so sluggish. You get barely any height when jumping, and there's no sense of cohesion or flow when it comes to the physics. You just kind of plod along and go fast when the game gives you permission, or go from 0 to 1000 with the spin dash, regardless of where you are, or the level geometry. The homing attack is a new addition, and in concept I enjoy it, but the execution is so botched. The level design relies strictly on placing enemies in a line to homing attack and not using it in any other way. I mean, in the 3D games you can use it outside of that context, like for finding secret areas or skipping sections for example, but nothing like that is carried over with how the game is built here. Oh, actually, sorry, I lied about the music. One of the Lost Labyrinth themes is tolerable. Congrats, Sonic 4, you got me. Speaking of, the game consists of 4 zones. They're Green Hill, Casino Night, Labyrinth and Metropolis Zone in all but name, with tiny gimmicks that sprinkled in that range from adding nothing of value to being actively frustrating. I sincerely wish I could understand the logic behind copying previous levels and exclusively making them worse, but I suppose I'm just not big brain enough to grasp it yet. That's not even mentioning the bosses, which are just complete rip-offs of bosses from the original zones too. Topping everything off with Egg Station Zone, a boss rush of the already tedious 4 bosses, with an added rematch with the Death Egg robot, except made longer and far more boring with a new phase where damaging him is dependent on whether he decides to do a specific move or not. Hit him one more time after to roll the credits. To be honest, the only positives I can really think of is the special stages feeling way better to play than the Sonic 1 iteration, and Super Sonic being playable in regular levels for the first time since Sonic 3 and Knuckles, instead of being saved for the final boss, if I recall correctly. I have very faint memories of playing this on the good old Ipod Touch back in the day, but I don't remember thinking anything in particular about it back then, and you could slap Sonic's name onto pretty much anything. You could slap Sonic's name onto math questions, and I would be like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. So, me not having a positive impression on it as a kid, it probably said quite a bit of the quality of the game, but revisiting it now, goddamn, this game just be stanky. Hopefully they really work to improve things for Episode 2. Almost instantly, everything feels way more pleasant in comparison to Episode 1. Let's start with the graphics. Whilst they're nothing mind-blowing, I can at least look at them without feeling ill, so that's always nice. Sonic feels far better to control as well. He has a decent jump and there's a noticeable improvement when it comes to his speed and physics, although it's not perfect. Tails is here to tag along this time around, with the big new mechanic for this game being tag team actions, such as a big spin dash, flight, Tails acting as a makeshift submarine, and so on. The special stages have been based on Sonic 2's half pipe. Granted, they did try to differentiate it a bit, with optional routes and power-ups you can get, but it doesn't feel great, although it is tolerable in the early stages. You know what isn't? The soundtrack. It's going for the same Mega Drive / Genesis imitation that Episode 1 was, and it sounds just as poor. I can't even name a theme I like even a little bit this time, sadly. One thing that was improved was the implementation of the homing attack and level design. It's not used purely for enemy strings anymore. There's little bits of puzzle platforming throughout, and I'm a big fan. It's nothing revolutionary, but I appreciate that they're making an active effort to improve it. The bosses are pretty unique here too. I like the first two, the second in particular since it's a fight with Metal Sonic, taking some cues from the CD race, but I can't say I like the third one in Oil Desert at all. The zone started off as rather unique too, with Sylvania Castle Zone being an abandoned ruin or castle, and you could say it's taken ideas from Aquatic Ruin Zone from Sonic 2, but it feels different enough to me for it to be its own thing. The second, White Park Zone, kind of merges Ice Paradise and Toy Kingdom from the Sonic Advance games. That's the vibe I get anyway. The third, Oil Desert Zone, is pretty much just Oil Ocean Zone, but with more of a desert motif. Who could have guessed? Not super impressed with this one. Oh, and fuck Special Stages 6 and especially 7. They just got kind of worse as they progressed, but the final stage is so frustrating. You have to be near perfect to complete it, but once you do beat them, you do get Supersonic out of it. There's also a red ring in each level, but I don't think collecting them does anything. It's just for collecting's sake as far as I know. Sky Fortress Zone is a carbon copy of Wing Fortress, auto-scroller on the airplane that goes on for way too long included. I don't have any complaints with the next level, the Death Egg Mark II, but you get another rematch with Metal Sonic, this one being much closer to the CD race than his first battle, before taking on Dr. Eggman as the final boss. He utilises the shifting gravity gimmick, which has been a constant in this zone, and at first just jumping onto stable ground and attacking him, with electric platforms being added and a shield you have to break with the tag spin dash. Rinse and repeat about 4 or so times to beat the game. Now, it's a marked improvement over Episode 1, that's absolutely true, but I can't say the game wowed or amazed me in any way. It's a fun enough little time killer, sure, albeit with some unfortunate flaws, but something titled Sonic 4 should be much more than just some time killer. There is a reason why it feels so underwhelming, and I'll get to that in a moment, but it isn't quite over. Finishing the game and having data for Episode 1 on the same system unlocks Episode Metal, a small side story starring Metal Sonic. When I said small, I meant small. And I am talking about the episode, not anything else, get your mind out of the gutter. It's literally just 4 levels of Metal Sonic going through the Episode 1 zones in reverse order. I might be going crazy, but it feels a tiny bit different, in a good way to play since it's in Episode 2's engine. I'd say it feels like 10 to 20% better to play, but since it doesn't have any of the bigger improvements I've gone over, such as the level design improvements or the tag team moves, it's still not great. But I'm not going to turn my nose up at playing as Metal Sonic, even if he's just a Sonic palette swap. So while I've got footage of it in the background, I'm going to discuss a little bit just why Sonic 4 feels so disappointing. Originally, it wasn't meant to be Sonic 4 at all. It was meant to be an independent game simply titled Sonic the Portable. However, it seems like Sega higher-ups decided it would be better to title and market the game as Sonic 4 and split it up into episodes, likely in an attempt to make more money.
Which was the style at the time.
An episode 3 was planned with Knuckles to be included, but that was officially cancelled in 2015, leaving what little story the game had to go on a weird little cliffhanger. Honestly, I think it's kind of a shame. If episode 2 compared to 1 is anything to go by, who knows, episode 3 could have been something special, but that's not the world we live in. Sega got too scared by freaks having an aneurysm over Sonic's eye colour and shelved it. Can't say I blame them. Does anyone else get weird kind of deja vu from this and Sonic Dream Team? And if you think about it, this was a portable game just meant to be for iOS and Android or whatever, and then it got ported to consoles as well and bigged up as Sonic 4 when it really wasn't, it was just a little mobile game. Whereas Sonic Dream Team, it's only for Apple Arcade, and yet it looks like one of the better Sonic 3D platformers we've had in a while. And that's not being released on console at all, or even to devices other than Apple devices. It's Apple Arcade exclusive. Sega really know how to boggle the mind sometimes. Nowadays, I don't think there's much of anything to be gained from playing these. There's really next to nothing to them. I guess check out episode 2 if you're really curious, but I just say we all do ourselves a favour and collectively agree Sonic Mania is really Sonic 4. And with that, I'm ending the video here. So yeah, if you enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.